This week on the Retirement Quick Tips podcast, I'm sharing with you some key takeaways from a unique and excellent book by Frank Hanna called What Your Money Means and How to Use It Well. Today, I'm comparing the decision to give now while you're still alive to giving later after death. Now, most people, I think the average person donates something like maybe 1 to 3% to charity per year of their income. And what is suggested in this book is a much more radical approach than that. And I just want to kind of summarize this decision about giving and giving consistently during your lifetime in what Frank discusses as some of the decisions he's weighing in his own life. He says, it's imprudent to bequeath our non-essential wealth automatically to our relatives or thoughtlessly to others. Some of them may squander it quickly. To be honest, I've struggled to figure out how to choose a successor to handle my money, and I'm not entirely satisfied with any of the formulas I've come up with. Nonetheless, in my will, I've got to fill in a name or set of names. So based on what I know of others, I'm using my best judgment to ensure that what's left of my wealth when I die gets into the hands of persons who share my values. Once their fundamentals are provided, again, fundamentals, I talked about this at length earlier in the week, and it's a core concept of the book. So it's important that you decipher between like not giving away anything to your heirs. He's not advocating for that. He's suggesting that once you provide for their fundamentals, he wants to make sure that his wealth, the rest of it, goes towards the common good. And then he goes on to say, far better, it seems to me, than burdening my heirs with money beyond their needs, and far more consistent with the principles and obligations we've described in this book, is that before I die, I use all of my non-essential wealth for the common good, so that none is left over. Basically, give it away while he's still alive. I think that's the best for me to do with it, and it's the best thing for you too. For even if death doesn't stop us cold before we use the bulk of our wealth for the common good, old age, distraction, and incompetence may. Okay, so let me go back a little bit here because, like I said, many of us donate some. Many of us, though, in our donation and what we give away to charity or causes that we care about, there's some problems with it. One is that most of us are not really consistent. We just kind of give here or there or whenever the mood strikes or whenever someone asks us for money. That is a problem. And so we have to guard against that. And, there are some ways that you can be more consistent in your giving, ensuring that you are treating it like a bill, like any other obligation that you have, and doing consistent giving on a monthly, quarterly, annual basis. But again, it's important. It's sort of like exercising. If you're not in the habit and you don't have a consistent schedule for when you work out and exercise, then it's likely to fall by the wayside because you can't establish any consistency around it. Well, the same thing is true for giving. Another important reason beyond being consistent and giving regularly that helps sort of build this habit is that it also helps you practice detachment. Frank Hanna says here that keep your attitude towards your possessions from becoming grasping. You need to loosen your grip on some of it on a regular basis and do so cheerfully. In such generosity, there is wisdom, goodness, and virtue, all of which only come when you actually loosen your grip on your wealth. And he says that's a core reason why you have to give it away. Another important reason to give consistently and to the point where it's sacrificial while you're still alive has to do with generosity. Hannah says, like typing, dancing, sewing, and so many other skills, giving is only learned by doing. The more we do it, the easier it becomes, and often the greater the desire grows to do more of it and do it more often. Generosity today awakens in us greater generosity tomorrow and an attitude of public spiritedness. And he goes on to say, in sum, sharing our money with others awakens in each of us humility, generosity, and confidence in God's providence, each of which is an essential element in the life of virtue to which, as I noted earlier, all men and women, rich and poor, are called. We must regularly give some of that money away. Okay, well, as someone who myself, I want to be very careful about what I say here because I don't want to seem like I'm bragging, like, oh, I give a bunch of money away to charity. No, that's not why I'm saying this. But in my own personal experience, I've always tried to give money to charity, my church especially, but to other organizations and causes that I believe in and I think help the common good. And I try to be very intentional about that. My husband and I discuss that and decide together where we're going to give. What I've done over the years is establish a very regular habit of consistent giving. So I can say firsthand that it does become easier. It fosters generosity, especially when you're doing it in a somewhat sacrificial way. Like I have 4 kids. I have to put these kids maybe through college. I have my own retirement to plan for. There's still a lot of uncertainty about the future and what the future holds because of my age. I don't know what the future is going to look like. So it is tempting to hang on to that money and say, well, I'll give later when my own financial security is assured. But there's problems in that, as Frank was noting, about being too attached to things, not being generous, not having that consistency. I can tell you firsthand from my own experience, it does get much easier over time. And it also has a side benefit that I really wasn't expecting of eliminating guilt. So, there are things that I might spend money on that I'm not quite sure, is this beneficial? Is this necessary? Is this a good thing for me? And using the guidelines in the book as a framework, I'll have to continue to think about that. And it is a continued work in progress. But what I notice is that I won't buy a first class plane ticket. I feel like that's frivolous. And I'm not judging anybody who does that, certainly, but I won't do it myself. I don't need it. It's not a good and higher use of the money and the limited resources that I have. I could afford to do this in some cases, but I choose not to. And so that would be an area where maybe I might go to Hawaii, though. I'm not going to fly first class, but I would like to go to Hawaii soon. And I've talked about that with my husband, is trying to take a trip to Hawaii. Is that a beneficial good and something that you could argue easily that would be a good thing and not a frivolous way to spend your money? Yes. However, when you are doing these things, going to Hawaii, going out to eat all the time, joining a golf club, driving a fancy car, living in a nice house, if you're doing all of those things and not giving away anything or a meaningful amount of your money, then I think if you're really thoughtful about it, you're living in a way that's not consistent with what you know to be a good and right way to live. And so there's a lot of guilt that comes with that. And so from experience, I can tell you that guilt is often removed, maybe not removed completely, but guilt about your standing in your financial situation in life can be removed by giving away generously and being consistent about that. So I've gone on a little long today, but tomorrow I'm going to talk more about some specific guidelines for giving and giving consistently that are laid out in the book that I think are really interesting and useful and practical. All right, that's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Ashley Michike, and this is the Retirement Quick Tips Podcast.